the centerpiece of the saddle, a lot of them are gonna have like brand marks or something. This is where the AVR leaf is. I want this to be aligned over the dock of her tail. I also want to see if it's sitting to one side or not, if the panels are coming to one side or the other. So if I were to move the saddle this way, first she swishes her tail because it's uncomfortable, but now you can see not only is it pressing against her spine on this side, but it's also pressing against her trapezius muscle, remember the non-weight bearing muscle on the other side as well. This is going to make the rider sit this way, or they're going to be fighting to push the saddle the opposite way. And again, that makes you not easy to carry for your horse.
Hello everyone, I'm Amelia. This is my assistant Caine. Today we are going to be helping you with saddle fit. Caine is a bit more of an expert with saddle fit than I am, and this is just like surface level saddle fit. If you're having a problem, reach out to a saddle fitting expert. We're not experts, but that said, there's a lot that you can learn and kind of gauge and figure out on your own about saddle fit. So we're going to teach you that in today's video.
Hi, I'm Caine. I'm Amelia's assistant. I'm very passionate about saddle fit, so today I'm going to show you a saddle that fits and does not fit and how you can judge that for yourself. This is Natasha. She is our subject today. So when you are first setting a saddle on a horse, and I'll just take Natasha's actual saddle and sit it on her, there are quite a few things you want to look at first when you first set the saddle on. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to walk to the other side and make sure that the saddle is sitting centered and balanced on the horse's back before I judge the fit. The next thing that I would probably look at is that it has enough gullet clearance and spinal clearance. The reason that's so important is you want to have room for your horse's withers to lift and for their spine to flex. If your gullet, which is the spine that runs down the middle of the saddle, is too narrow, it's going to be pinching your horse on either side of their spine, and they're less likely to want to bend and flex as you're riding. I want the centerpiece of the saddle. A lot of them are going to have like brand marks or something. This is where the AVR leaf is. I want this to be aligned over the dock of her tail. I also want to see if it's sitting to one side or not, if the panels are coming to one side or the other. The next thing, now that I've seen, okay, the saddle is sitting centered, it's sitting straight, it's sitting balanced, is you look at the tree angle, and you want the tree angle to match the muscle behind the shoulder. You don't want to sit your saddle so far up that it's blocking their shoulder. Another thing that you can look at for an easy mark is every single saddle brand is going to design their billets to fall into the girth groove if the saddle is sitting where it's supposed to sit. The girth groove is about the width of, or the length of my hand here. So you can see when this saddle is sitting centered, the billets naturally fall into her girth groove. I'm not having to pull them forward or pull them back when I put the girth on. The last thing that I would do for just a brief run through is I'd wiggle the saddle. It's not going anywhere. This saddle fits her pretty well. If I were to move the saddle and it falls to one side or it slides back or it slides forward, it doesn't fit. So your saddle should fit without a girth. However, when you sit in the saddle will compress, and so you have to consider that as well. Okay, when you're looking at the map of your horse's back, there's some markers to tell you where the saddle is supposed to sit, and it's their weight bearing area. That area is behind the scapula and the shoulder, so I have my handy dandy chalk. If I were to feel where her scapula is, she has a pretty large shoulder. It actually comes all the way back here. So I'm gonna draw a line with my chalk where the end of her scapula is. So the reason this is important is you don't want your tree or your tree points to sit further in front of this point. You also don't want to be sitting it too far back. Additionally, there's a thin muscle here called their trapezius muscle. And the trapezius muscle is a non-weight bearing muscle. You do not want your saddle, and my chalk's not showing up on that part, you do not want your saddle to sit along this muscle. So that goes back into why spinal clearance and gullet width is so important. because this is not a weight-bearing muscle. This is where the longissimus starts. Then after you've drawn up here, Natasha is a little round, so I'm trying to feel where her rib cage is, because I want to find her last rib, which is about here, and then draw that feeling up almost to where it connects to her spine. And I'm gonna draw there as well. Sorry, honey. Good girl. Now this importance is that you don't want the weight of your saddle to sit past this point, because this goes into a non-weight bearing area. So this is now the map of your horse's weight bearing area and where your saddle should sit. If you are a taller or larger rider on a smaller horse, the way that you can get a larger size saddle to fit on a smaller horse is to get what are called upswept panels, which tuck the weight under a bit more, rather than panels like these, which take the weight behind a little bit more for weight distribution. So your saddle should sit within this area. You want shoulder relief. You want the shoulder to be able to flex. Some trees are specifically designed to flex with the horse. Other trees are designed to be lightweight, just so that you are giving your horse the most freedom of motion possible. I'm going to sit a saddle on her that doesn't fit. Hi. So again, I'm going to the other side, making sure all my bases are covered, that I'm sitting the saddle centered and straight. Now this saddle is kind of an optical illusion, because if I were to just look at the angle of the tree against the behind her shoulder, it looks like it fits. The angle is not bad. I've already drawn out my map of where it should sit on her, and so you can see the weight of this saddle goes behind her line, my chalk line, of where her last rib sits and connects to her back. This rib does come out here, but your weight is going to be all the way back here on this saddle. This saddle is too big for her. Additionally, if I were to be looking under this saddle, you can actually see daylight through here, which means this is not sitting with an even weight distribution across the entirety of her back. Yes, it has a wide enough gullet. Yes, it has the tree clearance or the wither clearance, and yes, it has a good angle, but other aspects of the saddle do not work for her. And the last marker is that the billets are not just going into her girth groove, they are sitting too far behind. I would have to be pulling this forward too much. When I put Natasha's fitted saddle back on her, again, this does not go at all past the white chalk line of her last rib. It sits behind her scapula. It has plenty of wither clearance. You want to think that you can fit, like you can stick a whip all the way down the gullet and it would come out the other side. I've also heard from some saddle fitters jokingly that you should be able to fit a wine bottle in your wither clearance. So again, this is centered. You don't want your saddle here or here. If you ride as a crooked rider, you're also likely to change the flocking on your saddle, and over time your saddle might start to list one way or the other. Once you've established that you think your saddle fits and you're ready to get on, make sure that your girth is snug. I did say your saddle should fit without a girth. However, when you get on to ride, you are going to want a girth, and you're going to want to note how your saddle changes when the girth goes on. If it's a very drastic change, like say you tighten your girth and the saddle collapses in front, you might actually be dealing with a saddle that is too wide. Another thing, final notes that you can look at in your horse is typically, but not in every case, if your saddle is too narrow or you've been riding in a saddle that's too narrow, you're going to start to see atrophy behind their croup. Sometimes it's called a hunter's bump. If your saddle is too wide or you've been riding in a saddle that's too wide, you'll see atrophy in front of the wither, and there'll be a dip there. So that is judging the straightness of your saddle from all angles. Okay, beyond your saddle being centered and straight, you as a rider have to be centered and straight. If you are riding in a saddle that does not fit you and your horse, you are going to be constantly fighting with that saddle, and you no longer become easy to carry, which is your sole job as a rider, is that you are easy for your horse to carry. The closer you are to the center of gravity on your horse, and the straighter and more balanced you are, the better movement you're going to get out of your horse. So, judging that this saddle does sit straight, if I am conscious as a rider and I work with my trainer and I work with my physical therapist and I am straight, I'm going to have a better time in this saddle. Additionally, you want to consider knee blocks as well. I'm a really short rider. Amelia is much taller than me. We ride with kind of different angles of the knee block, maybe different lengths of the knee block. I actually personally don't even ride with a knee block at all. The seat size is going to be different. The leg flap is going to be different. So again, the saddle fitting you is as important as it fitting your horse, because it affects your rider position. If your knee block is wrong, if your seat size is wrong, for me, if I ride with a flap that's too long, it's very uncomfortable for my leg, and I'm having to actually fight with the leg flap, and then I can't get my leg on as well. So saddle fit does go into rider position, which, as you guys know, is a very vital piece of Amelia's program. So it's something you want to consider as you are going through your riding journey. I hope you liked this video. If you have any questions, ask in the comments below. Remember to subscribe, like, and comment, and I hope this helps.